Have you ever read Fourth Wing and thought to yourself, I haven't read any other books by Rebecca Yarros? Well, I went down the rabbit hole and read majority of her work, and we are going to dive into it today. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be going over majority of Rebecca Yarros's books, and I just want to say that this has been an experience of a lifetime. And what I mean by that is that Rebecca Yarros really pulls at the heartstrings, and I left this marathon of reading her books like it was just an emotional roller coaster, and I didn't know that my heart can take so much, but I did it. I did it, guys. I did it for you. I took the bullet and I said, I am going to read all of her books so I can give my input on her work and other things that are not Fourth Wing related. What I realized about Rebecca Yarros is that she writes a lot of military books, military themed. So if you are in a mood to go into a military based romance, she is the perfect author to go to besides having to read Fourth Wing. And my friends, if you are waiting for book 4 of the Empyrean, I don't know. After reading all her works, I don't know. I am scared to what's to come in the Empyrean series. So without further ado, let's dive in. So of course, I have to start off with Fourth Wing. So for those of you who have never read Fourth Wing, this is actually one of the first books that got me into fantasy romance novels. Now, this book right here transported me to a different world. It introduced me to so many other books, so many other stories. So for that, I am grateful for it. Now, for those of you who have not read it, I recommend this book wholeheartedly. This book is about dragons, bonding to dragons. It focuses on the story of Violet, which is the FMC, and Xaden, which is the MMC. It is a enemies to lovers trope. So this book follows Violet, the FMC, who enrolls in Basgiath War College, and she is under intense pressure, and she is basically what people say weak. However, she is the strongest at heart. And I feel that her journey is one to definitely read. She bonds to a dragon or dragons. I don't want to spoil for those who have never read it. However, if you've seen this around, and I know this has gotten so much buzz, but it is for a reason, guys. This book is definitely worth the read. I loved it. I loved the entire series so far. Like I said, I am scared of what is to come with the Empyrean series after finishing so many Rebecca Yarros books, and they're all heartfelt. So I also cried with this book, and I can't say enough about this book. If you haven't read it, please read it. This is definitely a 6-star in my opinion. Read it. So the next book I want to talk about is The Things We Leave Unfinished. I know I did a review about this book. However, we need to circle back to this. This is another book that I enjoyed. There was so many plots, so many twists. This is one of those romances that can stand the test of time, and I feel that this is such a worthy read. It does follow two different couples. One is enemies to lovers, and then the other is going through the FMC's grandmother, or Graham as she calls her. And the Graham story takes place in the 1940s, World War II with the Nazis, and both of their stories are incredible, but I extremely loved Graham's story. Her name is Scarlett, and so Scarlett went through so much. However, when she found herself, her honey boo boo, everything kind of made sense to her. And however, it is scary, it is military, so be prepared for a lot of plots, a lot of twists, a lot of turns. I did shed some tears in this book. This book had me on a chokehold. I was staring at the wall, I think, for so long. I took a break from this book and read like a little rom-com because it was just so much emotion that I had to endure. But this is definitely worth the read. If you have not picked this up, I recommend this 110%. 5 stars in my opinion. The next book I'm going to talk about is In the Likely Event, and this one I read on my Kindle. I wasn't feeling this book very much. I want to give it a 3.5 stars. For me, it was mostly the FMC that I was just kind of like eerie about. She was just, I think, childish for me. This story is also a military story, and it follows a military man and the FMC. They endured a plane crash together, and after that plane crash, it's kind of like they have history together. However, this does contain a miscommunication trope. So I don't know if the miscommunication trope was off-putting to me, which is why I gave it a 3.5 stars. In my opinion, this was my least favorite book out of Rebecca Yarros. However, it's a good read, so I want to say it's like a maybe for me. But yeah, other than the FMC being a little bit annoying for me, that's all really I have to say about it. I don't want to ruin the story. I think it was a good story, and it does have a little bit of action in Afghanistan. I feel like the FMC played with her life too much. I feel like she's so stubborn and just very like stuck in her ways, and she doesn't realize that the male main character is just trying to save her life time and time and again. He saved her life in the plane crash, and then he's also saving her life in Afghanistan as we speak in the book, in the present tense. So I don't know, it was just I just, maybe it was just the FMC for me, but I felt it was just so childish of her, and she just didn't act like an adult. However, I do think it was a good read. Do I feel like it was the best one out of all of Rebecca Yarros' books? Absolutely not. It was an okay read. The next one on the list is going to be Variation, and I read this one on my Kindle as well. And I just want to say this is a little bit different than all her other books. It's about a ballerina. She is a prestigious ballerina. Like, I'm talking about like the next prima donna. I'm pushing it a little, but she is a ballerina, and she is at the height of her career, and she gets injured. And that is the worst thing to happen to her, because being a ballerina was her entire life. However, she did spend her summers at a beach house that her parents bought. Through that beach house, she actually met a local, which became the MMC, and they never really started dating. They were just dancing around the idea of dating, but he loved her and she kind of liked him too, but it was kind of like a forbidden love, because her mom prohibited any locals, any boy to actually be with her because of her determination and her, like, you know, those strict parents that they just want their child to work and work and work and work and no play. Yeah, that was her mom. And her mom was very adamant about who she dated. So her entire life, she dated pretty much people that were in the same vicinity as her, other dancers. It always came back to the MMC, you know? You just can't get rid of that summer love. But of course, something ties them together, which was her sister. And her sister died in a car accident. And so everything goes back to her sister. She is grieving. He's kind of helping to repair her heart while also helping her to discover herself and what she truly wants, not what her mom wants, what she truly wants. I love the story. I will give this book a solid 4.5 stars. I think it's a little bit different than her other books. However, it does contain a little bit of military again. I feel that because the MMC is part of the Coast Guard, it means that he is kind of part of the military in a way, not in like a army, I'm going to be deployed, but it kind of is, because when you're a Coast Guard, you get placed somewhere, right? He is a Coast Guard, so keep that in mind. However, I did enjoy this book. I thought it was great. 4.5 stars. Is it worthy of a read? Yes. The next book on the list is The Last Letter. I just want to say you have to be emotionally prepared for how this book will wreck you. It will wreck you. I cried starting chapter 3 to 4. That's when the tears began for me. And that's how soon Rebecca Yarros decided to just put a dagger in my heart. This book had twists and turns, unexpected deaths, unexpected anything. I was crying on and off with this book. I remember I went to sleep when I finished this book, and I woke up with my eyes swollen the next morning. And my husband was literally shushing me to sleep because it was just so emotionally powerful. And as a mom myself, I kind of resonated with the FMC of the book. She is basically a mom who had twins at the age of 19, and she finds out that her daughter has cancer, and it is devastating. And the grief that she goes through is so powerful, and I felt every word. And the reason why this is called The Last Letter is because her brother is deployed. Ding, 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 ding. Military. Yes. So her brother is deployed, and her brother has a best friend in the same unit named Chaos. And Chaos, well, he's a loner, doesn't have family, doesn't have anyone. And so his brother asked his sister, the FMC, if she can write letters to Chaos. And of course, she wrote him the first letter, and she kind of said, you know what? This is a stranger. I can pour my heart out in these letters. And Chaos was a little bit adamant about it at first. However, he then decided to put pen to paper and write back. And that's where their love story began. And it is heartbreaking. I don't know how much more I can say that this book will emotionally devastate you. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to reread this book in a very long time. I think about it now often since I finished it, and there's just so much grief. Grief is the middle name of this book, and Rebecca Yarros did an amazing job. This is a 6-star read. Is it worthy of reading? Yes, absolutely. The next book on the lineup I read on my Kindle once again, and this one is called Great and Precious Things. Now, this one is also military based. It's about the MMC who deployed along with his brother, and he came home. However, he came home without a brother at the end, and he had to bury his brother. And this book goes through grief once again. I've noticed a pattern with all her books. They go through grief, guys. That's why her books are powerful. Grief. Now, she bases this book in Colorado, a very small town in Colorado. Everybody kind of knows each other. Everybody knows everybody's business. Everybody knows everybody's life, pretty much. And as this MMC comes back home, he is then greeted with grief. He hasn't been back in 10 years. He's been deployed on and off for 10 years, and he said he would never come back to the town. However, he found himself coming back to the town because of his father. His father is battling Alzheimer's, and if you don't know what Alzheimer's is, it is basically losing your memory and losing who you are and not remembering anything. I used to work at the hospital. I've seen many dementia patients, and what we call it is the longest goodbye. And it is the longest goodbye because at times patients don't even remember who they are. And it is the saddest thing to witness. I can't imagine family members that go through this with those patients. And I can't imagine how it must feel for the patient themselves, because sometimes they are aware that they are not remembering certain things, and it's frustrating because they want to remember. This book gave me the feels in that department. So as this MMC comes back to basically care for his father, he is also greeted by the love of his entire universe. He was always in love with her. However, she was with his deceased brother. Yikes. So they also have to grieve the brother, Sullivan, and also it's kind of weird for him because he's like, she's my brother's, and I don't think I get to claim her because, well, she grieved him. The town knows, and the town sees the FMC as, hey, she's Sully's. Like, she's Sullivan's girl. It was just a whirlwind of emotions, and the MMC is more like, I don't care. I don't care what people think of me. I don't care that they think the worst of me. It was a great book. I want to give it 5 stars. It was indeed a great book. Do I recommend it? absolutely, it is a good read. And the final book that I read by Rebecca Yarros is Full Measures. Now, Full Measures is part of a series, I believe 5 books. This one can be a standalone. However, book 4 also picks up after book 1. So if you want to follow that storyline, you can do book 1 and book 4, because book 2 and 3 are 2 separate storylines. And the 5th book is also a separate storyline. However, I will say that I didn't think I had more tears in my eyes after the last letter. And this book right here proved me wrong. I had more tears to shed. It goes through the grief of losing a father. So this book goes through Ember, the FMC, and she is grieving her father. And at the same time, she is the eldest of 3 children. So she has to pick up the pieces. And when the armed guards knock at the door, it is not always good news for military families. And her mother kind of goes into shock and depression, and so she has to pick up the pieces, and as an older sister, she has to care for the household. So this book goes through a lot of grief. I shed a lot of tears throughout the book, not as much as the last letter. However, there's certain things with grief that hit me the hardest, especially during a burial service for a fallen soldier. And her father was the light of her life, and it took me to a place where it was pretty dark. Ember had no time to grieve. She had to pick up the pieces after her family. She had to care for her little brother, which was the youngest, and the middle child, which was her sister. She was 17. Ember was only 20. There was just a lot to take in for her, and she had to stay strong for her family. Meanwhile, her mother kind of recovered and got out of that funk. She did find solace and a way to escape with the MMC. And this FMC's name is Josh, and Josh was pretty much there for her. He's like, you know what? I will be your whatever you need, I am there. And he certainly was. And I love this book so much. So yes, this book is full of a lot of grief, a lot of things that began to uncover for her. And then on top of the grief, more plot stuff happens to her. And it's like, come on, like, give this little girl a break, give this girl a break. I felt for her. I really did. And it's hard. She just felt that her dad died in vain, and that he died for a cause that she just didn't see the end to. I think wholeheartedly, after reading all these books, that she had every reason to be angry at the military, at everything. It definitely gets you through grief for sure, but there's also hope in her healing, and this book takes you through the pain, but it also takes you through the healing. So this book for me was a 5-star, and do I recommend? Absolutely. It is a great read. So after reading all of these Rebecca Yarros books, in conclusion, I want to say I enjoyed majority of her books. Do keep in mind that these books do contain some sort of military grief. If you are mentally and emotionally prepared for a wild Rebecca Yarros ride, I absolutely recommend her books. Particular if you feel like having a good cry, a really good cry, The Last Letter is definitely it. I think that her writing is great. I feel that I connected to every single story, and I do feel that her books are worthy of reading. Mine is In the Likely Event, but that was just like a one-off book that just wasn't the greatest for me. However, I do think her work is worthy of reading. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and enjoying the Rebecca Yarros ride with me. Have you read any of these titles? Please let me know in the comments section below. Let me know if you enjoyed any of them. How did they make you feel? Is it part of your TBR, or will it be your next read? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate every single one of you that watches my videos. Don't forget to subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.